Well, it's fairly cold and windy. I do have a nice heated cabin over here next to me, but it's about 5 below Fahrenheit, so I just do little shot strings of 20 or 30 shots and then go warm up. I've got some steel at 50, 100, and I can move over to 200, but I'm using my Osight X red dot, so I'll probably stay between 50 and 110 yards, and I'm running the Anico 22 can. This is so lightweight, and I really enjoy this can. Very, very quiet. I'll go ahead and throw a few at 50. Maybe I'll turn off my microphone so you can hear that, and I'll try a few. I'll risk a few at 100 here and see if I can make contact with that, let's see, 10-inch target down there as well. I love that sound. Yeah, that's really quiet, guys. Very, very quiet. And empty. Oh, that wind is bitter. Okay, I switched over to some oily ammo instead of waxy ammo. I think it's going to run a little better in this on sub-zero days. Anyways, I got about 5 minutes before my hands are completely freezing, so I'm going to run a little bit more of the SK style ammo here. We'll see what that looks like. I'll check to make sure the can is still on tight, and keep trying out this Osight X, which has been doing really well. Right now I'm on just the dot style reticle at 50 and 100. So if you can hear that over the wind, there's a 10-inch target here at 50. That one's not too hard. The 10-inch target at 110 with 22 with no magnification, it's not too bad for the consistency I'm seeing, and I am shooting good quality ammo. Now I'm going to go ahead and test out to see if the can loosened up at all, and then I'm probably going to switch around on the reticles a little bit because I want to try out some of the donut style with that Osight X. All right, can is still cold. Of course, it's super cold, and the reticle, I'm going to adjust that by holding down the minus sign. Switch to the donut. There we go. Let's try that one out a little bit. Out ammo. The more that I use the donut reticle on this, the more I like it. I actually was very skeptical at first. I wasn't 100% sure that I would be using it in actual use or hunting or anything, but I actually really like that donut style reticle. I just don't prefer it with a dot in the center. Some people might prefer that. I could see up close where that would be advantageous, but out here where it's just white, it's bright, as long as I have decent brightness on the reticle, I like the dot or just the donut. It's just my preference so far. Okay, there's the first reticle. That's just the dot, probably the most common one we're all used to. But there are other reticles you can cycle through by holding down the minus button. There's the donut. I actually find the donut to be pretty effective. I'm really happy with using the donut. It was kind of a big change for me initially because I'm so used to using precise center dots, but this one was good. And then you have, there's our next one, a dot inside the donut. This is my least preferred out of all the reticles, but I know a lot of people do like that. And quite frankly, it does provide a big bright spot on whatever target you're using. But for me, if I'm trying to decide on what kind of or what part of the anatomy of a critter or attacker you might use, I like the dot, and then I also like the donut. This one was surprising to me that it was so usable and that it didn't block or obstruct much of the field of view. It actually was very practical and allowed me to put a very small target inside of that donut even at distance. All right, a couple observations. Number one, I feel like the can did get progressively quieter as it filled up with gas. The first shot probably was the loudest shot. I'm going to check in a second to see what point of impact looks like in grouping, but I'm pretty sure, because I've tested this before outside, I'm pretty sure point of impact is going to be pretty much the same, maybe an inch difference at 50 yards. Not terribly different for the application that I see here. Again, I'm shooting a carbon fiber barrel, so a lot of lightweight build things going on, and resonance, all that. The reticle, I like the dot style reticle for this reason, is that I can put it precisely on a black target and, you know, kind of favor left edge, right edge, and know where it's at, but then I can also switch over to the donut. Now the difference between the Osight X and the, oops, I'm gonna switch it over. You just hold it down for a second. There we go. The difference between the Osight X and the Osight S, which I've already done a review on, is just that, you know, there's generally a bigger window. In fact, I'm gonna pull this out here. Here's the Osight S. So enclosed dot, really cool. Love it on this pistol. That's why it's still on there, because I think it's great. But the sight with the donut, I think it's just a little bit easier to find on the Osight X because of how big the window is. It's generous. And if I needed to shoot big targets really quickly, that donut is great. I know that I can put a dot inside of the donut. That's probably fine for really close targets. Generally, I don't need that reticle so much, but I know that's popular with a lot of people. I personally vary between the dot and the donut most often, and if I don't know what I'm going to be seeing, I'm going hunting, squirreling, rabbiting, most of the time I just leave it on the dot. This gun is so dirty right now. Powder's just caked, absolutely caked in this thing. Quick shout out to my friends at Anarchy Outdoors. It's a great brand. If you're looking to upgrade your Tikka or your CZ or your Ruger, it doesn't matter if it's rimfire or centerfire, they have some of the best upgrades available. It's one of my favorite brands right now that I'm collaborating with. I do some affiliate work for them and I've produced some things, but honestly, I'd be buying that stuff one way or another because I really like their improvements and their upgrades. Very, very affordable, very effective, and they actually make a difference. We're seeing some neat, really innovative products, particularly the Osight series. Right now, what you're looking at is the brand new, for 2025, just released at SHOT Show, the Osight X. Now it's underneath this hood here, and inside the box are going to come a number of things. I'll pull this out so you can just get a look at it. This has some neat advantages over other products. I'm going to put that aside for a moment though and tell you what else comes inside the box first. And what's really cool is they include these little containers which actually move independently of each other if you just need to take one particular kind. They're loaded full of hardware, done really well. It's just the little things. They put a lot of effort and thought into it for the customer because people need sometimes a different thread pitch or they need a different kind of screw, and it's so frustrating to try to track that down. But Osight has kind of done away with the issue. I can't imagine you needing something other than what's represented here. They just did a great job in putting them in the little containers so you could take it with you, get it mounted up, frustration and hassle-free. This was a great idea, and I think everybody in the industry should take notice of how much they're throwing in at the cost. These are very affordable lights, and very affordable optics and sights, but they're still giving you all that you need. These extras kind of make a difference to me. Of course, you're going to get your branded Osight lens, and that's for the exterior to wipe that off if you maybe get some, I don't know, I shoot a lot of suppressed guns, so I get gunpowder and gas buildup. I get lots of nasty stuff on my lenses. Hold on to that. There is a lanyard, and that's for this tool. The Osight tool is kind of unique. You have a flathead on one side, And then you have your Torx or star bit, some people call it, on the other side. If you are in the habit of losing things like TV remotes maybe, you could lace this through and hold on to it. That would be one way to hold on to it. This is kind of nice. They have pretty decent lanyards, and I use them on some of their flashlights actually. They're really not bad, and I found that they're tough and a little elastic. But this is an important tool. Hold on to that. I like those. Kind of a neat design. They do throw in a bag if you need a bag to carry all your things in. You don't want them to get lost, or you don't want it to get scratched up with your lenses on the way to the range. You could throw that in there. Or if you just don't want to lose your charging cable. And this charging cable is actually a really high quality charging cable. It comes with a cord keeper, just all these little extras that are really nice to have thrown in. And this is for charging the hood. Just to remind you, this is not for charging your actual optic directly, it's for the hood, and the hood charges the optic with this particular model. There is a manual, which I'm not going to take you through right now because you'd fall asleep, and then there's a README on zeroing your Osight, and there's also installation instructions here. There's even torque specs I found on the back per what kind of screw you need. There's different torque specs for those. I thought that was really cool. They went the extra mile with this. They did the homework, and it's going to help you have a better experience with the product. So well done to Olight for including this, because a lot of people probably really kind of need this, or they want it. It's very cool. It tells you how to move what direction when you're zeroing, because lots of people get confused in this portion. So you have a diagram to teach you a little bit with some coordinates. That's just cool. Something I'm going to draw your eye to really quickly, it does remind you that when you are adjusting your windage or elevation on the optic, if you encounter some resistance or it starts getting too difficult, it's kind of hard, you do not want to keep pushing on the elevation or windage. You will cause some damage, and that's going to be on you. So just pay attention when you're moving it. People have had canted rails before. They've had canted dovetails for their guns. They've had issues with their slide. Something like that, and I don't want you to mess up your optic when there's actually something that needs to be addressed with your slide or your rail. So just something to be cautionary about. Seeing as the hood is incredibly important, I've actually opted to put my lanyard on the hood. That's the part I want to be most careful to never lose, and that kind of helps me do it. A couple things to say about the hood. Now, I've already charged mine up. I've already had this out of the box. When you install the hood on top, it's going to give you a quick battery reading, and I think this is so cool. It feels very futuristic, very modern. It's just well done. The aesthetic and the build design is really nice. There's your USB-C that you're going to plug this into your wall. And again, you're charging the hood. A couple informational specs on the back I'll let you take a look at on your own. And it's going to work when it's installed on a pistol. You can see that this meets up flush on the bottom. So you're not going to have an issue of running into your slide or anything else as this installs on your gun. Let's move it for now. I'll just give you a quick peek inside. You can actually see, let me grab my Olight and shine inside. You can actually see that's where you're making connection with the top of the charging. And that's going to go to this, just like the Olight flashlights. This top part here, metallic portion, is the charging bit. It's magnetic, and it kind of sucks it up in there. Nice strong magnet, holds onto it, and you can charge it on the go. You'll get multiple charges out of these things. I find that actually the battery life is really, really good. And I'm shooting in cold environments. I'm here in Minnesota, where typically battery life gets drained down a little quicker than advertised numbers. Usually I have issues with purported battery life or how long things are supposed to last. Even some brands that are really famous for lasting well in harsh environments, I have issues with them because of the cold. But this Osight has not had that issue. This has lived up to the manufacturer claims, and I encourage you, check out your manual if you want to see more about that, because this really can last a good long time without needing the hood. But for me, because it's going to go on carry guns and that sort of thing where I really depend on them, I put the hood on at night, and if this is ever drained down, then I'll go ahead and charge this and throw it on after. Let's move on to reticles quick, and then I'll show you some of the features of the optic. Now, you're looking at a blob right now, and that's probably unimpressive to you. Actually, to my eye, it doesn't look like that. That's an issue with DJI camera. Actually, what I'm seeing is that very first picture, which is a 32 MOA circle with a 2 MOA dot on the inside. That's actually what I'm seeing. It's much more clear than what is represented by my camera. Now let's move on to the dot. So the dot itself, you can get there by holding down on the subtract button here. You can get to that by holding down on the minus button. So that will do two things. You can actually dim your optic if you need to. Let's go ahead and dim it down and get it quite dim if you need to. And if you hold it, the function is to change the reticle itself to a dot. And there's our 2 MOA dot. I think that's pretty neat. I'm a precision rifle guy. I like tinier size dots. I'm used to looking at that inside of a lot of reticles with scopes. So this didn't seem too small for me, even though very often I've shot 3 MOA dots in the past. This is precise, but still not that hard to pick up because it can get very, very bright. Let me go ahead and increase the intensity. I'm telling you, this thing can get really bright. Great job to Olight on increasing that brightness factor. It's really, really good. And again, to my eye, I've actually got a pretty tight dot. I don't see clustering and I don't see too much blooming or anything of that nature. Let's go ahead and hold down the function button one more time just to show the halo or the circle. So to your eye, you're probably seeing a cluster once again, but to my eye, I'm actually seeing just this right here. So no dot in the center, just a circle, and you could kind of put your target inside. That's a 32 MOA circle once again. Something kind of cool about this optic is when you've pressed a function button, there's a little green light in the middle. Just lets you know that you've actuated something there, that the button is clearly working. That'll turn on and then it turns itself off afterwards. Nice large window. That's one thing that's great about Olights is they have a really decent sized window. So I feel like I get a big field of view. I don't think the bezel of the edges is terrible, and it does protect the lens. There's enough here around to protect the lens. I don't feel like I get much for water splashback or snow, not too much of the elements or dust coming inside this, the inner side, the projection side. And then also on this side, you can see the emitter there. On this side, it's slanted, and I haven't found this difficult to clean off. Also, something worth noting, there is an angle to this, and that angle you're seeing there protects this kind of little shelf. This protects the lens from any sort of impact, or if you were to rack it off a table or your belt or one of those gunslinger tricks, something like that, it's going to be protected. You're not going to impact the glass directly. At least that is my belief. And looking at that angle, it should be pretty strong and resistant. On the inside, I see some staging built down to the emitter. See a little bit of a design down here, which the intentional design with that is probably to reduce reflections. That's one thing that they've done well. They don't want to have unnecessary or undesirable reflections going into your optic. When you're looking through glass or plexiglass, anything like that, you need to be careful about reflections and where things go. And so if you do certain kinds of designs, it'll take away from reflections or at least reduce reflections overall. Branding is done well on here. It's pretty minimal, looks good. And on the bottom, there's the footprint. That's what you're actually looking at. A little bit of information on the battery as well, if that's important to you. Here's your elevation. Here's your windage. Now, when I did my last Osight review, they reached out and said, hey, we should probably send you some bases. And I'm so glad that they did, because I like to piggyback my red dots and optics. So I might have a high magnification optic, and then I want to do a piggyback. And sometimes I need a high riser if I'm just going to run the optic by itself, like on my 9mm PCCs. I know so many of us are running red dots on PCCs. This is a great mount for that. I'll open it up in just a second to show you the design of that, and then a lower mount here, depending on if you're going to piggyback it or not. I just find that this tall window works out pretty darn well for piggybacking, and this combination is maybe what I'll go for in the future with that, but I do need to do a lot of pistol testing first. Let's go ahead and open up these two different mounts and see what they look like. Okay, first up, I have the RMA OSP 091. I have my tool, I have a Torx, a couple accessories there for the Picatinny adapter here, as well as hardware. They also include the hardware, very, very good. additional hardware in there. That's so nice that they throw in a lot of extras. And there's the mount, as well as an instruction guide. Osight is always hooking people up with instructions and letting people know how things work. I think that's a good idea. We take it for granted if we've been in the gun world for a while, if we've had Olights or Osights in the past, you just kind of know what's going on. But for new folks, they need this, and Osight is considering new folks who just don't know how to install things yet. They've never used it. This will help them with frustration. Here's the mount. Yeah, that's a pretty high quality mount. This is good. On the bottom, you can see that there's going to be 2 Torx pins. And you have 1 plate grabbing on. Those Torx pins right there, or bolts, cross bolts, are going to engage in Picatinny slots, but this is a 1913 style stopper. So if you're putting this on a rifle or something that has a Picatinny rail, or even piggybacking it, this 1913 stopper right there is what it's going to locate on, and then you'll tighten it down using these. Here's the footprint. One more time, I'm going to grab this and just show you something, that when this is engaged, you have it installed, whether that be on your pistol or on a 1913 rail, Picatinny rail of some sort, the hood is not going to be a problem. That's a pretty nice look. Definitely a high quality look. And fairly low. So if that's what you need, there's a great option. Next, let's look at the RMA OSP 157. I've already butchered the opening of this box like an animal that was deprived of food. You have your instruction manual one more time, so they didn't leave you hanging. This being a taller mount, let's see, is going to work great as something independent. If I'm not going to piggyback and I'm actually just going to run this by itself, let me make this look as complicated as possible for you. Okay, so you have your tools, you have your hardware once again, and the mount. I like that. It's got like weight savings cuts, lightening cuts, you could say. Similar design as the low profile version. Oops. Similar design as the low profile version. You have your 1913 in the middle. You have 2 Torx. Thank you for not using tiny size Torx. That's one thing I want to say to Olight. You guys are doing great. I don't like tiny size Torx. It's so frustrating to use. I'd rather use just some larger size that are easier to get a hold of. And there's what it's going to look like if I run that together. There's like a minor cantilever feel going on here, which is cool. It's got a great aesthetic. Pass through on the bottom. And this should co-witness with many types of irons that you're going to see on the market. One more time, shout out to Lux Gun for sending out their Lux Gun Hunt. This has been an awesome tripod, carbon fiber tripod to use, and I do hunt with this rig right here pretty often. Thank you to Summit Precision as well for sending out their carbon fiber barrel. This has been very reliable. It's shot very tight. Watch the video if you're interested in a Ruger Charger build that's as cool as this one. I love this. And then also thank you to Kid Innovations, who sent out their extremely light, very, very high quality straight flat trigger here. It's set at right around a pound, and I've loved this setup. And on top, of course, thank you to Osight and Olight for sending some things out to the channel for me to try out. I like this one. I do. And if your application is like my application, you know, I'm plinking, I'm hunting with it. I like the rechargeable idea. I'm not going to be throwing this around and tossing it. Even when I'm hunting, I'm not going to be totally reckless with stuff like that. And I don't really look at this as a battle-hardened sight. I'm not going to look at it as a defensive primary use sight. This is something that I'm using for, like I said, hunting, casual shooting, plinking, that sort of thing. And the price point really makes sense. I think this is a great price considering the features that it has and the reliability that it's had for me. The options for reticles, like I said, the features on this are just going to kind of set it apart from some of the other ones in the price point. And I do think it's durable enough for all the applications that I find myself using it, especially what you see right here. Really nice job on that one. I like the big window. I like the fact that I can top it off at nighttime, and I don't technically need to worry about switching out batteries and re-zeroing or any of those issues. I can just throw the hood on and know it's ready to go for the next time. And I do find it holds a charge for a pretty good time, even in the cold. And when I throw that hood on, I find that the hood is useful for multiple recharges. So it's unique, it's versatile, and I've put it on Piggy-Backs, I put it on as a primary, I've used these on pistol sights, and I like all of the applications so far. I just don't see a downside to them, unless, again, you're going to that really rigid, hard use kind of mentality. And this might be something that's just price point. You're not going to find something in the price point here that is quite as tough as you need. Probably, I think you're going to be looking at 3 or 4 times the price to really be happy with that concept in a red dot. So for me, I'm happy with this. I loved the Osight X and the Osight S for the applications that I showed you on this channel. If you didn't watch the Osight S review yet and you want an enclosed RMS-C style footprint optic, I encourage you to go ahead and watch this now.